All right. So let's get started with the issue on the operator lifecycle manager repos. And I think we want to release new release for the OM repo soon. I think that will be 0.19. So I think we should go over the milestone 0.19 to see if we can close out any remaining issue before we release the new release. So let's get started at the bottom first, see if we can tackle this.
Are you trying to share your screen? I don't see anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. I actually forgot about that. Give me 1 second. I need to quit and reopen Zoom for a second. So just give me a quick second because of the permission problem. I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. I think... All right. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so this is one of the issue that I think Ben was complaining about the end-to-end test failing. I thought this had been resolved already.
It's from a while ago. Is it possible we fixed it already?
Yeah, so I never see this issue before actually. I'm not sure where did Ben see this. I thought it would be something a bit more frequent so that we need to address this right away, but apparently it doesn't look like this is something we see commonly, I don't think. Go ahead,
just
Joe.
bump it from this milestone and leave it open in case we haven't fixed it yet.
Yeah, I want to
I
move.
haven't seen this error in a while, but it's possible it's still there. I think it's fair. Just put it in the maybe next release, and we can try to
I think that's
specifically later on.
That's fine. I actually haven't seen this error before, actually. Okay, I move it to 20 so we can closing that out at a later time. And this the next okay, cannot be installed normally in the cluster with PSP. Oh, this is a part. I think this is a part security policy. I think PSP is supposed to be a part security policy, if I'm not mistaken. So this is complaining that if the PSP set on the cluster, some part from our sub-OM part will be failing due to that policy because using the default server account. Does anyone actually try this before? It's a related issue.
It does seem like we should be able to just it does seem like we should be able to have RBAC specifically for this, and we shouldn't need to use the default service account in the namespace.
Yes, so this is surprising because we having the OM operator server account that for sure. I'm not sure why we having a default server account that we need to use here. Because we should having our own server account for OM, which is this is here. But I'm not sure why the default.
I think it's because it gets the job unpacks the bundle in the same namespace as the catalog source.
Oh yeah, that's correct. For the upstream OM is the OM namespace is using for OM and also for the catalog stuff.
Yeah. Like it could, I think what actually we probably need to do is have an explicit service account. That, well, yeah. So I'm guessing that's what it is that like we just use whatever service account is in that namespace, and it happens to be that in this case the catalog is getting installed in the OLM namespace, so it's associating that default service account. Whereas if when we were configuring that job to run, we specifically had a service account. We could even just still use the cluster role for this service account for the OLM operator. I'm just saying, I'm guessing that that's probably what this is, as opposed to like anything else.
If the catalog source is in an arbitrary namespace, what happens?
Yeah, that's what I'm. So I don't off the top of my head, I don't know. I'm guessing that it attempts to use the default service account in that namespace.
Right, but we don't know. Like, we don't know what service account to use in other namespaces, right? Like that would be the only one we know is even existent.
Right. So yeah, we would probably need to like explicitly stamp out a service account in that namespace for that job.
Yeah. Or I guess the other option would be add a service account name field to the catalog source API, and then the user can specify. But that doesn't seem great because that might not have the right permissions anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this compares specifically to the job that we run to the unpack. And I know the job having certain role binding as well for the config map that's created on the dash namespace. All right, so essentially it seems like what we agree upon is need to having a specific server account for the specific catalog source and including the job unpacker instead of using a default server account.
Was that the conclusion we came to? I think it sounded like it was inconclusive what the best thing to do is.
I thought I heard the best thing to do would be when we see a new catalog source, we create a service account for it, either add it to the cluster role binding that exists or maybe make a new cluster role binding. And then when unpack job runs, we associate those jobs with that service account.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's my question is when the catalog source is created, what service account is running that catalog source? Right, like there's some pods in that namespace.
It's probably
default.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's what we need to do is like just associate maybe you're right. Like we just create a service account for the catalog, and then for any of these jobs, use that catalog service account.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think about where that could fall down, but I guess that's something for whatever review on the PR to figure out.
I think in any case, though, this doesn't need to be in the 019 milestone. We can probably remove that when we ever, based on whatever comment we write.
So we do already create a role for the config map job that gives it permission to write into the config map that we created. There might be an option that just adds like the use some policy to that existing role that we make. Right, if I'm understanding the issue right, the issue is that the default service account doesn't have access to any PSPs that allow it to create this pod. But we already add a role to the default service account that gives it permission to create the config map, or to write into the existing config map, I should say. So it seems like that's at least worth looking at if it's easy enough to just use the right PSP for that.
That seems not great though, right? Because if the namespace is an arbitrary namespace that someone's created and they decide they want a catalog source there, all of a sudden we're elevating the permissions of the default service account in that namespace, which other pods might be using.
I completely agree. I guess I'm just pointing out that we already elevate the permissions of the default service account. So I guess just calling that out as like a stopgap that we could do if we needed to.
Alternatively, we could just always unpack everything in OLM's namespace instead of unpacking in other namespaces, in which case like it's tightly controlled the permissions that we're giving the deployment.
If you do that, then owners of creators of catalog sources may not be able to see the unpacked stuff, which would make debugging stuff potentially more difficult.
Yeah, but you could make the argument that owners of catalog sources should be getting ample status from OLM's APIs. And typically debugging ends up being like, you look at OpenShift's namespace anyway, 9 out of 10 times. Not OpenShift's, OLM's.
Maybe there's a good default here where we default to the OLM service account in the OLM namespace. But then if you provide a service account on the catalog source or something, we use that instead.
Would that have problems with owner references and like cleaning up those config maps when the catalog source gets deleted?
Yeah, that's true. That will be a cross namespace problem.
Well, if if I understood Evan's suggestion correctly, if we're just using the service account in the OLM namespace and giving it automatically giving it permission to change config maps and fire up jobs in other namespaces. Can you not, this is, I'll take a step back. I think I'm forgetting something fundamental with the way pods work.
I think what I heard you say is, can we give the OLM service account and the OLM's namespace permission to create pods and config maps in the catalog source namespace? And I think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, but my like, I'm trying to remember if you can actually like run a pod with a service account that's not in the namespace.
Right, you can't do that.
In. Yeah, so that wouldn't help this problem. So I must have misinterpreted what Evan was saying.
Sorry, I might have misinterpreted what you were saying. I thought you were suggesting that we have OLM service account run the jobs and store all the config maps like in the OLM namespace so that it basically be invisible. And then yeah, we'd have owner reference issues. We need to come up with some other GC policy for that.
Yeah, that was my initial suggestion. I thought now it's clear I misinterpreted what you said because it's just not possible with pods. If that makes sense. Sorry for weaving a tangled web.
To me, like that almost sounds more complicated than just doing what Kevin suggested and just creating a new service account every time we create a new catalog, every time a new catalog source is created in the same namespace.
Yeah, that seems reasonable too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because then at that point you are in the same namespace. You can run pods as that service account. You can use owner references in the same namespace and get the GC for free.
So I do think there's something we need to be careful about, which is up till now we've been telling users that in order to get access to private registries for the catalog source, you bind a secret to, or you can, one of the ways you can do it is bind a secret to the default service account. So that would break.
I thought catalog sources had secrets like in the spec.
Correct, it does.
So we would just bind those secrets to the service account we create rather than to the default service account? Or is there another mechanism I don't know about?
Maybe it does have it in the spec. It's been a while since I looked at that API. Yeah. It's cool though.
Sorry, I was distracted with something else in the background. I think, Vu, what you're writing, I was under the impression that we already create a service account for each new catalog source. And that was a design decision that was made just so that any secret that was added to that namespace, all the pods in that namespace does not churn through those secrets. So I was under the impression that we already create the service account.
Yeah, but does that happen when the catalog source doesn't have any secret attached to it at all? We may create that when there's secret associated with the catalog source in the spec, but if that is not the case, do we create a survey account?
It seems like there's enough questions with this and we've spent a ton of time on it. Maybe we just want to have somebody, we want to think about how serious this is and then have somebody look at it aside.
Yeah, sure. But if we're going to release the new release soon, then this may not get in.
Yeah.
So do we want to push it back?
I think we should untag this.
Yeah, I think that.
This is also clearly not a good first issue. We should remove that.
Well, maybe not a good issue for us, but maybe it's for someone else. But sure, yeah, this seems a bit more complex than just a typical easy bug fix. I will remove that and I will push this back to. It actually assigned to Kevin at the moment, actually.
I noticed that Joe assigned me.
Yes.
I think
From
you
the
told me
last
to
time.
last time we were meeting.
Well.
I could be wrong.
This is April, so that's basically forever ago.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So let's move on from this.
Wait, before we move on, I just checked some of the things you guys are talking about. We do create a service account for every catalog source, or at least every gRPC catalog source already. So this might just be switching from default reference to that service account name, if I understood everything correctly.
Okay, so at least that we know for sure that it's going to be a new server account. We just need to switching it over and need to look into it, that causing any further problem with the PSP. All right,
so
then.
maybe,
I guess
if
Kevin
that's the
can.
case, maybe it is a good first issue.
I guess the assignee, in this case, Kevin, can confirming that, and then he can get the first issue out of the way. All right, then.
Just real quick, I see, so I've got a catalog source that uses the address type, not the image type, and I don't have a service account for it. So it might be more nuanced.
Okay, so not a good first issue, but it does do that for gRPC.
We sure. Just need to wire up that code for the other catalog source types.
Yeah, I think assuming that would be the config map based stuff. That doesn't have that. All right, let's move on to the next issue. This is another issue with the end-to-end test case. This is rather a common error that we see here with CSV row doesn't exist. I mean, already exists. And I thought someone did attempt to fix this already. Yeah, I think this was from Evan. I remember this. And I think it's supposed to resolve this problem. So that why Ben reopened this, because apparently there's a panic issue here. I don't think this happened every single time, right? Otherwise, the end-to-end test case would never pass. If this panic problem is something frequently.
I was under the impression that, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, this is a flake, and I did spend some time looking at it. I recorded what I did and what results I got. I don't think I discovered a root cause for this, but I did make some changes and ran the test like a few hundred times and didn't see it. So I think I made it less flaky, but I don't think I convinced myself that I figured out what the root cause of this thing was and fixed it forever.
I think. Well, and then I don't feel like this end-to-end test case problem should be something blocking the new release. So I'm gonna push it back, I think. Assuming this doesn't happen too frequently, right? Which is, I don't think it is. I don't think it does.
Yeah, I think it's hard to make a case for having a release blocker be a test flake.
Yeah, and I Evan did attempt to fix it, so it doesn't happen as often anymore. Even though I remember that it's having another problem with something else only exists that I kept making fun of, but it doesn't seem like it's happened that frequently anymore, especially for the CSV role already exists situation. So I think we should be okay to push it back a little bit for the next release. All right, let's move on to the next one. This is a doc issue, Camilla. This is the upstream doc for validation.
This has been here for a while, and I think it has been triaged in one of the previous meetings.
Yeah, I think it's a doc task, so it's technically we can pick the doc anytime. Oh, wow. That it doesn't exist. That I'm sure this is a correct link for this, because this link doesn't even exist.
Is it possible that the tag doesn't exist? Can you just remove the last? Yeah, just get rid of that. No, I mean, like, get rid of the, just go to the validate package page. No, all of this has changed. Okay.
Okay, so I'm a bit surprised by this, because if it doesn't even exist on the validation in the first place, then how does she know it's missing SDK information? Anyway, this is a doc that we can actually fix the doc anytime. So I don't feel like it needs to be associated with the my store at all.
Yeah.
Well, my question would be, did this page used to exist and we moved things around and now we can potentially close this?
Well, I'd say this page did exist, and we did move things around, but I'd like to just make sure that we read through it first before we close it, or at least get in touch with the reporter.
I guess I'm just trying to argue that the documentation is a whole separate repository now. So should this issue actually just be on that repo instead of OLM?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so I think we're having the OLM dash doc repo, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so yeah, okay then. I'm just gonna have a comment.
Vu, we can actually transfer this issue in the bottom right there. There's a transfer issue link.
Oh, that's right. I actually want to comment as well. I'm sure that's the reason why we
It also
transferring
looks
it
like
out.
there's docs here that resolve this problem anyway. I'm gonna throw a link. Looks like that is describing this task.
All right, so it's
maybe the ask here is make this also reference operator SDK, but that's at the very least, no, it even does that. It mentions operator SDK bundle validate. So I think this is,
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
All right, so that's we have that done with. All right, let's go to the next issue. So this is the approval strategy problem. The operator installing a different namespace in the same cluster with the manual approval. Operating automatically by approve operate in one namespace. This having a assignee actually, which is Joe.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about this one like months ago, and then I went and tested it and didn't see that behavior.
So essentially, there's multiple different operator installed in different namespace, and somehow and they are in the manual approval, and we approve one of them in one namespace,
okay.
and the
I think I just realized what this is actually talking about. He's not saying when we flip the approval to true on the install plane. He's saying that like in the OpenShift console, I'm pressing the approve button and something bad is happening. I think this is a console bug, if it's still a bug.
Yeah, I think this. Yeah, it seems like this has been discussed before, because even Dan mentioned here that apparently there's an issue with the console. That somehow the console approve install plane in different namespace than what the user click on. And it seems like Joe was about the one need to go to confirming this, according to the message and the assignee.
Yeah, that never happened. My vote, I think, would be we asked a question and it was never followed up on. So I would probably, if it were me, I would probably close this and say, we don't think this is an issue. If you still think this is an issue on OLM, please reopen.
Yeah, and
Well,
I
think in either
this
case,
is a console problem.
It's a reopen on the OCP console because it's not a bug in OLM.
Yeah.
All right then. Actually, I will comment on this later. I would rather to move on to the next issue. I assume I will remember this. Actually, okay. So the next issue. So this is essentially a feature apparently on the release process. This has been discussed before. And so the assignee Joe. And they have an open PR on registry on this actually.
Yeah, so that one we might be able to close. So anyway, I don't know. I'd have to go look at that one. In operator registry now, we are doing multi-arch image builds and publishing release artifacts for the various. Right now it's Linux. Well, I guess it's still the old way of Darwin Linux and Windows. But operator registry has this stuff, and I think I just linked it over and said, we want to do the same thing here. But we just haven't gotten around to this one yet.
Did we ever integrate Go Releaser on OLM?
No, I don't think we have done that yet. I know Joe tried to do that on the registry repo.
That one merged on registry repo.
Yeah.
Is this just a tracker issue then at this point?
Let's do the same thing in OLM that we did in operator registry.
Right. I just also want to call out that the operator registry issue is still open.
Yeah, I think we still have that Mac OS problem. So keeping it open might be applicable until we get a better answer on that.
We definitely have a Darwin binary. What's the problem with Mac OS? Is it broken? Should we remove
Is there some legal problem, isn't it?
The way that I was trying to build the Darwin binary with Go Releaser was a legal problem with using Mac OS cross compilers on Linux.
Yeah, if I remember.
The way that it works right now is we actually spin up a Mac OS GitHub action and run a separate compilation, but that doesn't work with Go Releaser because Go Releaser kind of runs all in one go and on the same host. So right now in operator registry, Go Releaser doesn't manage the release binaries that go into the GitHub release. It only manages the multi-arch images.
Gotcha. Okay.
Can we close the registry one then?
That particular issue looks like it could probably be closed because that's just talking about the images.
So we want to close the issue on registry then. Is that the consensus?
I can go take a look at that one and close it out.
Yeah,
What
you
do we want to do with
also.
the? Sorry.
Yeah, but for the OM one, I'm not sure because we haven't done anything like this for OM.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with this. Do we just want to kick this to the next milestone, or I don't think creating a Go release or PR is going to be all that time consuming, but
Yeah, I think it's fine to push it to the 020 and give us time to work this thing out because it seems like it's actually take a bit of time on registry side as well. The last time we did it, so
yeah, I
it
think
may
that's fair.
be racking longer than we think it may be. Open the PR, it's not a problem, but get everything straight out.
The
to
good
get the
thing
PR
about
merged, maybe.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say the good thing about OLM is we don't need to build Darwin binaries for OLM. So it should be a lot easier.
I hope so. All right, then let's just push it back to 20 for now, and then we will revisit this at another time. All right, then. Joe, can you take care of the registry issue for this? You also assignee on that actually.
Yep, I'm looking at that now.
There are a few issues open to this. We can actually visit that later. All right then. Oh, this is a juicy one. Apparently, there's someone who would love to keep the support for the multiple namespace in store mode. This has been a while, but is there anything else that we want to comment here with the descoping effort that we have been trying to do for the past couple release?
is this a candidate to also transition to the OLM docs repo, assuming we add that repository to the triaging effort here in future meetings?
Yeah, it specifically mentioned that that in the doc we
doc in this repo though. It's not talking about the docs website, right?
But did we also mention this on the upstream doc as well on the doc website about the fact that multiple namespace mode may go away? I cannot remember on the top of my head if the OM upstream
Actually,
doc.
I just clicked on this link. This link is to docs.openshift.com. So I
was about to say the same thing.
I don't think, I don't think this is even appropriate for the. I think it's reasonable for him to be asking the question on this issue, but I don't think it's a docs issue because I don't think we should be talking about OpenShift docs in the upstream project.
All right. This actually aside to Nick actually on the doc stuff. So what would be the response here for us to close it out?
I mean,
it's still the elephant on the room that.
Well, but it's not wrong, right? Like, it's just saying that spec.target namespaces is not something that the multi namespace operator group is the thing that we were at the time talking about getting rid of. Now we're trying to getting rid of operator groups. So like, I think it's reasonable for us to like reply to this and talk about some of the plans we talked about around descoping. But I kind of think that's talk about those and then close the issue.
I see.
There's
if that's the case, then
nothing wrong here, right? So
yeah. If that's the case, then do we want to assign it to Nick? Nick, if you don't mind to provide some further info on the effort of descoping, aka operator group removal situation.
I mean, there's nothing beyond what was listed here. It's not just speculative.
yeah, I mean, if you want, just I can just reply to this one and close it. We can move on.
Sure.
We can remove it from the milestone now and then move on.
Okay, then. Yeah, that's fine too. Then we remove it from the okay. All right then. And this should be the last issue, I hope. This is only a couple months ago. Oh, this is talking about the survey account. I think the issue has been fixed already. There's a lot of talk about. Oh, I think this is the issue with the fact that there's certain permission that they specify on the CSV that will be generated by our OM to become a survey account with that name, with that certain permission. And they also include the exact same survey account on the bundle itself. And it's become a colliding problem. And the fix was supposed to be remove that survey account from the bundle because that survey account will be generated by OM anyway.
Is it a sufficient response to say upgrade to the newest operator SDK and then close this out on top of rebuilding the bundle?
Yes, and actually, yeah, this also merged already as well on the API repo. So I think this should be a resolved issue already. Okay, then I will close it out and comment that this issue has been resolved. Unless anyone having any objection on this.
Yeah, I think that sounds good to me.
Okay, then. I will remove this as well. I remember I say I will comment on this saying that this is console problem. Okay, so I think we get all of the milestone issue resolved, right? Okay, then that's good. I don't think we're having a lot of time left, but we can go over to the registry side and checking a few things. Yeah. Also, I have this milestone here for the 1.19.
By the way,
Wow.
we had an open 1.18.0 milestone that had some open issues in it, so I just moved all of those to 1.19 because we've already released 1.18.
Yeah, did we release that about a week ago, right?
Yeah. So all of the open issues that were there are now in 1.19.
Okay. Are we planning to release 1.19 anytime soon, or this is gonna be a bit for another while?
I think we probably need to talk about what our release cadence is. So I don't know if we know the answer to that. We've talked about doing it along the lines of Kubernetes minor version releases, but maybe we want to do something more frequent for operator registry. We'll see.
Okay. I guess we can take a look at the overall issue on registry to see if anything new comes up since the last time. Oh, okay. We can try to on the top. All right. This is an issue with the partman, I think, on the registry side. I have seen this problem before. And I think we did talk about this at some point about we should, I think I and Kevin did talk about the fact there's some permission problem when using partman. But we didn't actually know how to resolve this problem.
I thought we fixed something along these lines. Should we ask what version of OPM is being used?
You
It's
could
an
also
open
just
5
ask
day.
them to, if they're using -- generate, there's no reason for them to use Podman. I mean, we can definitely ask to see if we can clarify, but I bet this is an issue with the version of Podman they're using or something like that. And we can just have them not set -p, and it should just use the container D implementation. Or -p container D.
This the command actually the index add the generate will be the one generate Docker file, isn't it? For the index add command.
I think this
It
is
generates
happening
the
on
database
extract.
too.
I'm sorry, Nick. Can you repeat that?
I think this was, it looks like it's going to a temporary bundle directory. So I would expect that when they're adding, this is on pull. Boo.
I'm sorry, it's
Like
something I did.
It still needs to pull all the bundles down and extract the content in order to add them to the index, regardless of whether or not it's just generating the Docker file or not.
Yeah, that's correct. I understand that, but I want to see if I remember correctly.
The point is the only reason that user ever should actually care about whether you're using Docker or Podman is if you want to build with Docker or Podman. Like I think a user probably doesn't care as if container D can do this job for them, because pulling images, like it doesn't really matter, right? The only reason to set this is because we don't have a rootless implementation of image building, but they're using -- generate.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, they could be using Podman's image redirecting options configuration.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, that's fair. Why don't we ask the question then? I think we should just also highlight, like, hey, you can, if you're just trying to pull stuff, you can probably just use container D and it should work.
Do we have, like, do we know of bad version of Podman that won't work? And if so, it seems like we should add like a section on our doc somewhere that say like, here's the version of Podman that you have to use OPM.
I don't recall this is a problem with version of Podman, I don't think.
I think we probably need the first steps from this are to get log output from whatever command they're running. And we probably want to see the permissions on the temporary directory that's created as well. Because I know that Dan Silver at one point had worked on implementation for image like index extraction, or basically in that registry that gives you the ability to pull a specific file, but it also makes use, or at least the recommendation I think was there to make use of the export formats for Podman instead of copying directly to disk, so that you could get a tar file containing the content so that you could strip permissions off of it before you wrote them to disk. Kind of like what we do in the containerd implementation. So like, I don't know, this seems pretty suspicious. I don't know if that was ever implemented yet. We should also check that and get the version from this guy he's using.
Okay, yeah, so Dan is not here, so we cannot really ask him about this. But it seemed to me that that feature that you just mentioned, Nick, is not done yet, I don't think, because I don't recall seeing a PR on that recently.
I mean, there's a PR for bug fix a while ago. I don't know if it ever merged. It sat for a very long time. But the next steps on this are definitely get the version of OPM they're using.
Oh, I can see
logs
the
from the
PR
output,
here.
and yeah.
It's been since February, so it's been
Yeah, I don't know why this isn't going.
It's also having a do not merge tag on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this I think
we should.
Yeah. Again, we should verify logs version, and then see if we can get this PR in, if it is the same problem.
Yeah, I guess I can comment on this and say if you can provide more information on the Podman version and actually get the actual output of the command that he tried to run here,
but
and see what exactly the problem is.
Yeah, I mean, like, the Podman version shouldn't really matter if it's the same bug, but it's useful to get that info anyway.
Yeah. All right, then I will comment this afterward. Let's move on to the next one. We have like 2 minutes left, so probably just one more thing. That should be it. Wow. A wonderful issue opened by Ben with literally one sentence. This has been assigned to Alex as well. I'm not sure if he want to. Is it Alex here? No, he's not here. It seemed like if the band want to remove this two field from the gRPC response, I think.
He doesn't want to remove them. He wants to mark them as deprecated.
Yeah, I know Ben's had a couple PRs about the provided and required APIs, but I don't think it was touching anything of the proto.
Yeah, I do recall Ben opened a few PR in the inbox as well, but none of them remove anything from the proto yet, I don't think. I'm not sure if this is an issue specifically. It is something we want to get rid of on the proto side. And if we do so, do we need to some sort of deprecation process for this? Yeah, I guess I can follow up with Ben and Alex afterward to see what the progress here is about. We don't have to sit on this anyway, we don't have time anyway. So I guess this is the last issue in the visit the registry. Okay, then is there anything else you want to visit? Okay. All right then. Thank you everyone for joining. I think that should be the end of the issue triad, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Vu.
Joe, can you do me a favor and click on the stop recording?
I am not running this.
I think it's transferring that to you, so I think you may actually have it. Actually, you know what? I actually can do that. Never mind.